Hello, Kentucky. Matt Tackett here. Excited to welcome you to this edition of the KAED Netcast. Now, every episode we have a special guest, and we certainly do today as we're excited to welcome Mayor Alan Keck of the city of Somerset. Now, through this netcast, we're going to discuss all the things that make Somerset and Pulaski County just a special place to be. The mayor has launched several bold, innovative initiatives, and we're going to dive into. The mayor's been a part of the reimagination of economic development in Somerset, Pulaski County, and we're also going to put him on the hot seat to get to know the mayor a little bit better. So without further ado, we're happy to welcome Mayor Alan Keck to the KAED Netcast. So welcome back, everyone. As I said, every episode we have a special guest, and we certainly do today as well. You know, this is one of two government leaders that I'll call my mayor. You know, people know I'm from Prestonsburg, Kentucky, but my family on my wife's side is all from Somerset. So we're so excited to have the mayor, and we're appreciative of your time today. And we're going to get into the weeds a little bit about what makes you so special, and talk a little bit about some of just the really bold, innovative initiatives that you've launched. You've been part of the reimagination of economic development in Southern Kentucky, and we're going to put you on the hot seat too to get to know you a little bit.
Hey, good. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Before we do, do you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about you and how you got to the mayor's seat in such a great community?
Yeah, my name is Alan Keck. I'm a first-term mayor in the city of Somerset, and it's been my life's greatest honor and privilege to serve my hometown. For those that maybe thought my journey was easy or has been privileged, I ran in 2014 and came up short and made it to a primary and then lost pretty handily in the general election. And we came back 4 years later in 2018 and was blessed to win by double digits against the same opponent. And so I think that in many ways, my story is one of perseverance, and that when you feel like God's called you to something, you don't give up. I've shared with many that you never can allow short-term results to dictate passion. And in many ways, I think that's where we are as Kentuckians. We have big dreams, big aspirations, big plans, and even if the short-term results aren't where we want them, we got to keep pushing. And so I love being the mayor. I'm a businessman by trade, and so economic development is something that is a passion of mine. I have a lot of experience in it as a former CEO of a privately held company, and so I love it. And that led me to feel like that I was prepared to run for mayor. And so here we are. We're rocking and rolling. We've had a good year and a half, and I'm so excited about what lies ahead.
Yeah, it's been incredible just to watch the energy and the passion and the successful way that you execute your role. And, you know, you and I go back further than you know, probably. There's a good friend of mine in the region that when even before you ran the first time, was talking about this emerging person that's going to take Somerset and take Kentucky by storm. So it's been great to follow you and work closely with you too. But you know, you're from Somerset, or you lead in Somerset, and just talk about the unique aspects that make that community and that place such a special place in this Commonwealth.
Yeah, I love talking about Somerset. It's something I get so passionate about because, you know, first and foremost, it's my home. I was born there, reared there, a proud graduate of Somerset High School, and after my undergrad time as a Hilltopper at Western, came home to be a part of family business, joined that company as a sales rep. And my wife, Tiffany, and I, shortly after we got married, moved to San Diego for about a year and a half. And I always knew I wanted to come home. And people say, why in the world would you leave, you know, perhaps the nicest city in America to come back to small town USA? And it was really, you know, my passion for the region and my love for my hometown. We're blessed with immense natural resources. I hope we get to talk about that later. But really what excites me most, and you know, maybe this sounds cliche coming from a leader, but I believe it so much, is our people. We're blessed with a group of folks that are incredibly hardworking, that are filled with pride for their region and for each other. And I say our greatest export and our greatest resource is our people. We're fortunate with an incredible amount of talented artists, musicians, creators, and that's been a big movement for us, is promoting art and entertainment in a way that really few small towns in Kentucky ever have. And we've seen a lot of fruit from it. And so I'm just so proud of, you know, my fellow Somerset residents.
Yeah, and we'll get into kind of the intrinsic benefits of your area and some of the things that you've done, because you really can feel a movement And I've got that word in some of my questions, and I'm excited to get into that. And
I appreciate that. Thank you.
another cool thing is some of the rebranding that's happened recently under your leadership. Somerset is known as the spirit of Southern Kentucky. And not only that, I think you pull influence from across the Commonwealth that kind of drives that spirit. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I love talking about our rebranding. It was so much fun. Before I took office after the election, I thought, what makes us unique? How can we sell the community? Because I knew that I wanted to sell it for economic development, but also for the tourism assets that we have. And so me and several on our team, and we brought a few in from the artistic community, and say, what really makes us unique? And we came up with what a lot of people call the prop. Some people have called it a flower, but really it's a four-sided logo, and it represents the best that Kentucky has to offer. In the north, we've seen so much growth and progress in Louisville and northern Kentucky, central Kentucky with Lexington, and we're proud of that. We're proud of Amazon and UPS and Toyota and Ford, all those things. And so, but we also have a lot of that economic development happening in our community. And of course, to our east, we always want to be proud of our roots. I know you mentioned where you're from, and a little shout out to my buddy Mayor Les over in Peaburg. A lot of our influence comes from the east, our heritage, but also an outdoor recreation. Kentucky really should be a mecca for outdoor recreation, and we haven't leveraged it in the ways that I believe we should have over the years. And then, of course, in our neck of the woods, as the spirit of Southern Kentucky, the southern shorelines. We have amazing lakes throughout the Commonwealth. Lake Cumberland, I think, being the signature one with over 4 million visitors a year. And so we wanted to tie that influence in. And then finally, in the West, we know that we're blessed with amazing agriculture, but also from Paducah on over, the art movement that's happening throughout Kentucky. And we're seeing that in Somerset. And so we thought, we might be the only community in the entire Commonwealth that can stake claim to all four of those things. And that's where we kind of came up with the spirit of Southern Kentucky, where we're creating our own influence, but drawing on inspiration from all over the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I think it's such an inspirational message, and I know it's one you love to tell, and I know it's one that carries very well as you're out having conversations. And
yeah.
I've got a two-parter here. So you've mentioned, and people know this, but you've came on and ran as mayor with specific emphasis on economic development. So can you talk a little bit about that? And then the second part is, let's talk about how you've reimagined how economic development is done and the emergence of a very important organization in Somerset, Kentucky.
Yeah, well, I'm actually, I don't know if you can see it. I'm wearing my Speeda shirt today. I want to talk a lot about them and give them a shout out in just a minute. But, when I started looking through the lens of economic development, my first passion was, how do we first say thank you to the folks who've been doing it for a long time? I mentioned my private background. My father started that company. It's an industrial recycling business in 1984. And, we had never had an elected official come to our facility on their own accord in over 30 years. And it's not that we needed the attention, but as an employer of close to 100 people, it would have been nice for folks to take interest in what we're doing. And so the first thing, and it kind of became a mantra, is Speeda is making business about people, thus taking care of existing business. But we also wanted to look at it through a lens broader than just jobs. We wanted to look at quality of place, quality of life, creating an environment that executives would want to live in. And I've always said that, businesses don't choose where they're going to locate. People do. No different than if you're in sales, companies don't decide what products to buy, people do. And that's at the root of everything we do. From my leadership at the city, building a team and focused on our people and what that culture looks like, and then again in economic development. So the group that you mentioned, Matt, is a group called Speeda, the Somerset Pulaski Economic Development Authority. And we feel like Somerset and Pulaski County should lead the Commonwealth in job creation. We feel like we should lead it in promotion. And we've taken some big steps to that. We've had some pretty incredible announcements in short order. And even in spite of COVID, we're still pounding the pavement and we're still rocking and rolling.
Yeah, and shout out to Chris Girdler, who's leading that organization in an incredible way. I talk to Chris all the time, and I know he's as passionate as you. So Speeda's just done an incredible job, and you're right. I mean, in a short amount of time, just the splash that Speeda has had, saying, "Hey, we're here," not only in Kentucky, people across the nation and people across the world know SPIDA, and that's manifest in a lot of different ways, and including some announcements recently that have been really cool. So do you want to talk a little bit about a couple of those and maybe give some shout outs?
No, I would love to, and I want to back up and say thanks to Chris as well. There can't be enough credit given to him. One of the things when Judge Kelly and I decided that we were going to launch SPIDA, it was essential that we found a leader who had the same level of passion that we did, if not more. And the reality is nobody cares more about Lake Cumberland, our region, and really all of the Commonwealth than Chris Girdler. He's been an absolute rock star. Nobody outworks him. Nobody out hustles him. And so we're so grateful for his leadership and his service. He views it as an extension of us and an extension of public service. And again, very quickly, we've had a group called Hollander come to town. They're a Cincinnati-based group. We were the first Kentucky location. We had a local 3-generation family business do a $15 million expansion, dozens of acreage. We've had call centers decide to locate in our downtown center instead of, the rural expanded call centers that we so often see. And then, maybe the biggest splash that we experienced, Horse Soldier Bourbon and American Freedom Distillery announced a $50+ million project. I think that one's going to only grow. That one might end up 70, 80, 90 million, dozens of jobs, world-class veterans that chose Lake Cumberland and Somerset as their home. And so what it tells me, Matt, is that Kentucky, we have it all. We truly do. If we'll make the effort and we'll put the appropriate pitches in place, we're going to get it done. And I made the argument very early that Somerset would take a back seat to no city in Kentucky. And I would argue that Kentucky should take a back seat to no state. And that's our mission, and that's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah, no doubt. And we enjoy just an incredible relationship with you that we know is so meaningful for the entire Commonwealth. And I appreciate your approach and perspective. And I appreciate Horse Soldier Bourbon being in Kentucky now, because their product is outstanding, but the story behind that is really cool too. I mean, I find it really inspirational, and I think it's something that people can look up. I think there's a movie associated with it too.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your partnership and your involvement. I mean, from your conference in Somerset and the work you do, the promotional work that you and your firm has done allows us to, again, kind of tell that story. It's wonderful when we get to share the work you're doing all across Kentucky and then highlight our region for those folks. But yeah, the movie's called 12 Strong. The premise is it was 12 soldiers that went into Afghanistan after 9/11 and helped liberate a country very quickly. I know the war has continued, but they had an incredible mission, and they all came home to be able to talk about it and tell that story. And so we're honored they chose us. They were here on Memorial Day weekend. They spent their Memorial Day weekend on Lake Cumberland, which was super special, and we had a blast with them.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed because I like spending time with that group, but I was out there too, and just kind of getting over my sunburn a little bit. But let's talk about some of the things that you've done in your time as mayor. And I think people in your community know this, and I think people across the state know that the attention that you've put in quality of place too, and you've mentioned this, but just the vibrancy that you've injected right into downtown Somerset. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been one of my probably most proud projects, and maybe the one that's brought me the most joy is that I wanted to light up Somerset. That was a promise we made. I made very few during the election, but we talked about lighting it up with art, with music, and then literally with visual lights. And, the small aesthetic improvements we can do in our communities, from lighting up alleyways that make them more inviting and more welcoming and also safer, to murals on walls, to the promotion of our local musicians. And those are all different ways of lighting it up, and we've done that. We're going to have a mural walk very soon with some world-class murals. We have 2 alleyways lit up as we speak. We're working on a 3rd. And then we've done a lot of promotion of our local talent, whether it's, Streets and Eats Festival, where we had busker musicians on each street corner, to a Moonlight Festival where we had 10,000 people in the heart of our downtown. And again, it's all about leveraging what exists. That talent was there before I became mayor. All we did was kind of like good economic development. You want a good environment for job creation. It's not government's job to do it. It's just to, create that canvas and allow the folks to paint on it very literally and figuratively. Yeah,
it's such a fantastic. Let me just encourage people. Like, if you're looking for a place to be this weekend, you need to get down to Somerset and see what's happening pay attention to all the activities and the vibrance and the energy that's coming out of that community, and lots of times right from downtown regularly. So it's an incredible place to be and convene and just to celebrate what makes Somerset and what makes Kentucky special. And, you talk a lot about the people of your community, and those aren't talking points for you. Those are things that you want to work on, or points that you can kind of help lead your action. And one of the things that you've set a goal of is making Somerset the healthiest community in the state. Mm-hmm. So it's really incredible work what you're doing down there. So you want to take a few minutes and let people know about that?
Yeah, I learned of a group in outside of Seattle, Washington, and they had some really their schools were really struggling, and they had a lot of the parents of the children that were struggling, that were having lots of health trouble. And I saw what they did when they were strategic about a holistic approach to health. And, you mentioned that these aren't talking points, and I do appreciate you saying that. When I lost my first race, it gave me, one, it humbles you, and you learn to look at things a little different. But it also really, it furthered my love for my community, because I got to hear, even in defeat, the real stories of firefighters and police officers and natural gas workers and the like. And I fell in love with the chance to get to serve alongside of them. But Healthy Somerset specifically was launched with the idea that we would focus on a holistic approach to health, our physical health first, with positive eating habits and exercise, our mental health, not waiting until we fall into mental illness, but promoting positive mental health, even when things are good. And then finally, spiritual health. And I've never been afraid to talk about my spirituality and my faith as a Christian. But even for those that don't believe, there is a spiritual component. Even if you believe in nothing, then you can think about Zen or some other things. I don't push my faith on others, but I'm proud because it's it's such a part of who I am. And those three aspects lead to true happiness and again, a holistic positive health. And so we've seen great response to it. We launched a COVID Crushers exercise thing where people could do 1.9 miles, 19 miles, or 19 miles in 19 days. We've done a walking challenge where I awarded a couple local folks who walk every day. We launched a farmers market to ensure that all our local community would have access to healthy food at a reasonable price. And I think that, again, taking that holistic approach will move the needle. I mean, we've seen what COVID has done with the death rate here in Kentucky, and a lot of that starts because of negative habits. And we're not going to sit back and hope that somebody in Frankfort says we need to do better. And, why not Somerset? We're going to get started, and hopefully other communities will take notice and do the same thing.
Yeah, the word holistic is a major word for your approach to leadership. I think that so well defines what you're doing down there. And Kentucky, we certainly have the geographic advantages and the manufactured advantages that we leverage every day, and you do as well. And you've got the people and the opportunity and the spirit to be successful in economic development. And you've got Lake Cumberland, and it's almost not fair. So can you talk a little bit about Lake Cumberland and what that means, and the really cool lake culture that exists around some of the areas?
It really is. It's crazy to say that a lake that for a long time had more visitors than Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Canyon. I think the Grand Canyon's caught up with us, but over 4 million people a year. It's hard to call that a hidden gem, but there's still so many people who don't know about it. And so we've tried leveraging it in different ways, making sure that we're working with the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, and partnering with those folks. We've got marinas in several towns. We call ourselves the capital of Lake Cumberland because most of the commerce in the region happens in Somerset, but it's a massive lake, has more shoreline miles than the state of Florida. It's a deep lake, so it makes for some incredible fishing. You can space out, which is why so many people chose it on Memorial Day weekend. You can go poker run style, a fast boat, you can bass boat, you can houseboat, pontoon, jet ski. It's just a credible amenity for us as a community. And again, it's also a tremendous asset for Kentucky, which is, one reason, and I'll do my best to avoid the political stuff, but I was so disappointed that Lake Cumberland Resort was chosen as one of the places to get shut down. It makes absolutely zero sense, and I hope that decision will be quickly reconsidered.
Yeah, on the lake, we get down there just as much as we can, and what a great asset that it is for Kentucky. I didn't know the Grand Canyon had caught up to us on people per year. So I'll send them a nasty email on that.
Yeah,
But you mentioned something earlier about when you were in the private world about an elected official not having came to see you and checked in. And I think one of the questions I had, and I've watched the good work that you're doing, at KAED, we're placing really heavy emphasis right now on business retention and expansion, because we know in normal times how important that is. And going forward, we know that it's just mitigate and emerge. So we're making sure that every pocket of Kentucky has a qualified strategy and kind of a responsibility or an ownership of that process. But you've always, and your community's doing a great job of nurturing your existing business, and some of the good work that you're doing as we kind of deal with COVID. Can you share a bit about what you're doing and your approach to it?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to, and so much of that credit belongs to Chris. I'll share a few of the things I did early, and then bringing him on allowed me to focus on a lot of other things. But the first several weeks of my tenure, I went on a listening tour where I went and met with some of our largest employers and asked them how local government could do better. We had one that employs close to 1,200 nationwide, almost 1,000 of those in my county, and they said they had never had a mayor do that. And I was just flabbergasted. But new job announcements are sexy and they sell for politicians, but we wanted to do it different. We thought that a job created from a local group was just as important, if not more, because the investment and the commitment was already there. We knew that they would be cultural fits. And so when SPEDA was formed, we made our first pillar taking care of existing business. Let's help them grow and develop and expand. And, we're doing that. We've done, I think, an excellent job, I can say with humility. Chris launched an industrial leaders breakfast where, 4 times a year, we bring all our local leaders in. We hear their concerns, we share what we're doing, and we try to find ways to help them. As you know, that, it used to be location, location, location. And now in economic development, so much of our concern is labor, labor, labor. Who's going to work at our facilities, drug problems, and people don't want to go to work, and the government's our biggest competitor. And so, we've worked on jail reentry. We've worked on hospitality training. I mean, it sounds like I'm giving you a lot, but the work that those folks have done in conjunction with city and county government has just been tremendous. And I think it's fruit that, it might not get front page headlines, but it's transformational for our community, and I'm incredibly proud of it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of best practices that are emerging from Somerset and Pulaski County. I just encourage everyone. Chris Girdler does just a fantastic job, not only of implementing the strategies, which is most important, but also telling the stories so that we can see the great work that's done. And I think a lot of us are learning from that. So just want to commend just the incredible work that you all are doing on BRE and on your workforce development, and just what you're doing to best position your area and this Commonwealth as we emerge from this. But you've provided a lot of good leadership as you've demonstrated, but also a lot of good leadership as we reopen Kentucky. And I think if you weren't the first mayor to release a reopen plan, you were one of the first. So can you talk a little bit about that and how the community is positioned because of your solid leadership?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to. And again, I want to be delicate because it's not about promoting myself, or I want to avoid politics the best I can. But, what you said is true. And, Mayor Les and Prestonsburg and I, we had talked about being a little bit more aggressive. We felt like Kentucky had done a great job, and I'll commend the governor on that very early on. I think that his efforts were fruitful, and they had really helped us. But what I've said is that you don't run the same play all game. And, we were told that if we flattened the curve and didn't overwhelm our hospitals, that we could get back to work. And I took that as a commitment. And so when I saw that our chiropractic offices and our optometry clinics and our dental offices were languishing, and there was no good reason why, we said enough is enough. And we launched a plan and sent the governor letters. And I'm thankful to say that a couple of days later, they were able to reopen. And that allowed a lot of people in our community to go back to work. And we have to, and I want to pause here because this is incredibly important. We have to understand that the economy is just bigger than Wall Street or the stock market. This is Main Street USA. And when we talk about the economy, I'm talking about mom and dad providing for their kids, or grandma and grandpa having the ability to provide for their grandchildren. This is as important as anything we do. Ronald Reagan said the greatest social welfare program in the world is a job. So these aren't numbers on a page. And when I hear Kentucky is last in America in unemployment, it pains me, Matt. It's not something that we can just shrug our shoulders and say, well, it will get better, or it's a short-term problem. That's nonsense. And so we wanted to take the lead. We did the same thing with our restaurant industry. Tourism is a massive industry in our state, and again, locally for us, $11 billion economic impact across Kentucky, yet our restaurants weren't open when all around us they were in other states. And so we did the same thing. We put together a plan and asked the governor to open them sooner. Instead of phase 2, let's get them open for Memorial Day. And I'm thankful that worked, because there were a lot of people in my community that were really happy to be doing that during Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, well, me as well. I ate really good in a lot of good places. We'll ask you a question about that later. But, during that time, we were all submitting proposals on behalf of our industries or our communities or whatever. And you were such a good, strong advocate for your community and the industry that exists there. And we commend you for that. And everyone else across the state that was putting these proposals together when we were asked. And I think state government responded to that because we did such a really good job, and you were right on the forefront with leadership there. So I really commend you for the good work that you've done. And I think the last question before you go on the hot seat here is, there's a lot of smaller communities that belong to our audience for these netcasts. So what would be just a couple of 1 or 2 points that you think that we might all need to be considering right now as we're kind of emerging from this?
Well, I appreciate that question. I love talking about it. I love talking to folks throughout Kentucky that have seen what we're doing and ask how can we mimic it. And I would say 2 pretty quick things. You mentioned it earlier, but tell your story. I forgot a book one time going to Washington, D.C., which I never forget books when I'm flying. And I read a book called The Storyteller Secret. And it really spoke to me that the most powerful way to convey our message is via story. And we have amazing stories here in Kentucky. And the second thing is I would make that story and your message authentic. Be who you are and be really proud of it. Kentuckians are amazing people. I love comparing us to Texas because in many ways, Texans were Texans first, Americans second. And I think Kentuckians have an incredible amount of pride, and there's good reason for it. But we need to get back to being proud of what we have and what we are instead of apologizing for what we're not. So tell that story and do it in an authentic way, and I think you'll watch your community transform.
Yeah, absolutely. So just thank you for the time and the depth that you went into this. I think, I continue to learn a lot from the great leadership that comes from there, and I'm excited to put this out to our audience. And, the mayor and the great team at SPEDA, and shout out to Judge Kelly too, who we have a great relationship with. You're only a phone call away, and you all are easy to find, and you're so cooperative and collaborative within our association. So we've asked you some softballs. So now we're going.
Oh, is that what those were?
That's right. Okay, so we're gonna get into the hard stuff now. Are you ready? Okay, Mayor Keck. This is an easy one. What is your favorite bourbon?
Oh, favorite of all time is a 2014 Michter's 20-year. My favorite, probably, everyday bourbon of sorts would be Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
Okay. What's your favorite musician or band?
Oh, wow. Favorite. I'm gonna shout out to my Somerset folks. Kevin Dalton and his group. They got to play at one of our festivals, and he said he'd been waiting 20 years to play like that in front of his hometown. When I'm listening to Pandora, it's anything from Christian music to Post Malone. So it's pretty random.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's probably confusing their algorithms there when they try and.
It definitely does.
Okay, now this one may get you in trouble. Where's your favorite place to eat in Somerset?
Oh gosh, can I punt and say the Keck Kitchen? No,
That's a good.
I love promoting downtown folks. So I go to Serendipity a lot. It's just down from the office. Downtown Deli, which is downtown as well.
Okay, yeah, a lot of good food there. The Keck home, that was a good politician answer there.
I can pivot with the best of them.
Yeah, a lot of people are stumbling through these or don't want to answer. So,
but again, authenticity, man. You got to be who you are.
There we go. Okay, so what's your favorite hobby when you're not leading a city or doing economic development?
Oh, good question. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm still a Major League Baseball certified sports agent. So I represent minor league and Major League Baseball players. So I love watching baseball. Sports being canceled has been a little challenging for me, but I really enjoy getting to help those young people chase their dreams, just like I've done and chase mine.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's a cool fact. So these are about getting to know you better, and it's interesting to watch what's going on with Major League Baseball right now. Who knows if we're going to have a season?
Yeah, I'll get myself in trouble. I'm gonna stay out of that.
Yeah, okay. So that's for our next netcast. But you're off the hot seat, and this was a fantastic interview. We appreciate your time here. And before we go, do you have any parting words for our members or Kentucky?
Well, I would just say thanks to you and your leadership. It's been fun to collaborate and work with you. I appreciate you telling the Kentucky story in unique ways. I would just say that, now, and I'm going to say this often over the next several weeks, that, this has been the test of our humanity, and I would argue that test has been met. And now it's time for the test of our courage. And I hope that in Somerset we'll lead the way as we have over the last several months. But thank you again.
Yeah, Mayor Alan Keck, thank you so much for your time. And this was a fantastic netcast, and we're excited to release it to the wild. So thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Bye.